This video is about solving relatively simple rational equations. Here's the first example. Now, this equation has one side which looks like a fraction and the other side which does not look like a fraction. In order to keep things on the same footing, let's take the right-hand side and make it into a fraction. Now the left-hand side has denominator x minus 2, the right-hand side has denominator 1. The least common denominator of those two denominators is x minus 2. Let's take each side of this equation and multiply it by x minus 2. Now the left-hand side, what happens is the original denominator cancels out, you're left with 2x. The right-hand side, the divide by 1 really doesn't enter into it. Let's distribute this 4 onto the x and negative 2, leaves you with 4x minus 8. Rearrange the equation, add 8 to each side, and one more step, subtract 2x from each side. Final step, divide each side by 2. Now, it's a good idea to check your work, so let's take the original equation, this equation in the box, and let's try an x value of 4 in the equation, see if it works. Substitute it in, 2 times 4 over 4 minus 2, and that should be equal to 4 if this is the correct answer, so that's 8 over 2, which does equal 4. Check. Second problem, a little bit harder, not much harder. 9 over x minus 1 equals x minus 1. Again, the right-hand side doesn't look like a fraction, so let's make it look more like a fraction. Look at each side. You can see that you'll need to multiply through by the least common denominator of x minus 1. Now on the right-hand side, you already have an x minus 1 over 1 in the first place, and you'll be multiplying by x minus 1 again. On the left-hand side, the denominator cancels with the extra term that you've multiplied by, leaving you with 9. And on the right-hand side, you will have to multiply x minus 1 times x minus 1. So x times x, x squared, x times negative 1, negative x, negative 1 times x, negative x, altogether negative 2x, and finally, negative 1 times negative 1 plus 1. Subtract 9 from each side because you can see that you've got a quadratic type of problem. And so you'd like to get all the terms to the right-hand side by subtracting 9 and 0 on the left. Now, one method of continuing is factoring. And here to factor, you see you have x squared, so the first term in each of the two factors will need to be an x. Skip on to the 8 and think of two numbers which multiply to 8, such as 4 and 2, and then refer back to the middle term to help decide what the sign for each of the factors will be. Now, once you get 0 equal to factor number 1 times factor number 2, each of those two factors independently can be set equal to 0, which yields the two results, x equal 4 and x equal to negative 2. Now, trying out the 4 quickly, 9 over 4 minus 1, that's 3. And on the right-hand side, 4 minus 1 over 1, that's also 3. 3 equals 3, that checks out. Trying negative 2. 9 over negative 2 minus 1 is 9 over negative 3, which is negative 3. On the right-hand side, negative 2 minus 1 over 1 is negative 3 over 1, which is also negative 3. That checks out as well.